Started.
Hello, thank you guys so much for joining us. I just wanted to take a minute and introduce our panelists today. We're super excited there. We've got some phenomenal experience in our panelists. The first up is going to be Alyssa Danielle Part, who goes by Danielle. And she is currently serving as a transitional specialist at the Institute for Disability Studies at the University of Southern Mississippi. She received her bachelor's and master's degree in social work from the University of Southern Mississippi. And during her time at IDS, she has served as the first 2-year LE&D training. She's also served as an in-person and virtual trainer for the transition of teens to adult life program. She's also served as a mentor to Inclusive Step Up to Leadership Council and provided technical assistance for university students with disabilities. She was chosen as a 2018 AUCD Emerging Leader, and as an alumni, she now serves as the Mississippi Land Junior Faculty Advisor. So as we see, she's got loads of experience, and we are super excited to have her. Danielle, do you want to start off the discussion? Then I'll come back and I'll introduce each panelist as we go along.
So is where we're doing the PowerPoints, or?
Suzanne, do you have the?
Why don't we finish introductions and then we'll do
Oh, okay, sorry.
No, you're good.
Okay, yeah, let me, okay, sorry, we'll go on to, our next panelist is Benjamin Dell, and he's been working with the Ideal program at Georgia State University as a peer mentor and a job coach since 2017. He joined Community Provider Price Support Network as their career developer and job coach in January of 2020, and he has recently received their Association of Community Rehabilitation Educators certification. He's excited to continue to learn and grow in his work by supporting people to find meaningful employment. Job coaching in 2020 has certainly looked differently for everybody, and is excited to discuss the triumphs and challenges of being a virtual job coach. We're very thankful for Ben coming and joining us. And then our final panelist is Tammy Johnson. Tammy has had a very long career with Disney World, Disney Parks and Resorts, which included time as a career path mentor and a corporate trainer. Additionally, she was one of the few county substitute teachers who worked exclusively in the K-12 ESE classrooms. After retiring, Tammy had an opportunity to work with the Inclusive Education Services program at the University of Central Florida, where she now focuses on students developing real-world employment skills, career path choices, genuine confidence, and career readiness, resulting in productive, meaningful employment. So we're very thankful for Tammy as well. All three of our panelists, as you see, bring a wealth of knowledge and experience in virtual internships and job coaching. So here we go. Over to Tammy. I'm sorry, over to Danielle.
Well, good morning, everybody. So first of all, I just want to say thank you to SEPSEA for this opportunity, because I know a lot of the post-secondary programs, a huge component of that is the internships part, and probably most of the programs with COVID are wondering how to incorporate internships and job coaching. So I'm here today to share a little bit about how our pilot program, Higher Education for All, has incorporated that. So a little bit about IDS, or Institute for Disability Studies. We are Mississippi's USED under the AUCD network, which means that we facilitate the flow of disability-related information between the community and the university through research, dissemination, service, and education. Next slide. So first, I just wanted just to give you just a very, very, very brief overview of our pilot program. And I say pilot because we are not an official program yet. There's only one in the state of Mississippi, which is at Mississippi State University, but we are a pilot program, which is funded by the Mississippi Council on Developmental Disabilities. We have had 7 students come through our pilot program. We classify them as community adult learners. Most of them where they take one class a semester where they audit or take it for a grade. Or we have also had 2 full-time students who have received those extra supports and services that we offer through the Higher Education for All pilot program. To the right is our logo. So as y'all see, it's the graduation cap on top and the Higher Education for All component. Next slide. Okay, so what we're here for today. So how do we do our virtual internships? That's the big question for probably everybody here today. So what we have done for this semester, this was our first semester to actually incorporate the internship component of it. So what we began with, we had a peer mentor come up with a list of career interest journal questions. Whether not just like what career are they interested, what skills do they want to learn? What careers do interest them? What do they want to learn more about? So we utilize those journal questions that the students answered, as well as what we do is called a person-centered plan. So what a person-centered plan is like a profile that we use where we ask them questions like what's important to them, what's important for them in life, what supports do they need, what are their goals. So person-centered plans are a huge component that we use for anything in higher education for all. Even with classes like that, we utilize that tool. So with the internships, we use that as well. And based off of those journal entries and questions that they answered in the person-centered plans, the students that did an internship experience chose they wanted to do something with a gardener, a writer, a restaurant host, a librarian, and then also we have somebody who is an office assistant, and she was actually hired at IDS to work part-time as there. So we were able to do some internship activities with that as well. So our internship experiences were 1 month for the month of October. And what we did is that we sent them weekly schedules of learning activities, whether it was videos they had to watch, whether it was journal questions that they had to answer. We incorporated, my favorite part are the hands-on activities. So if you look to the right at the top, there's an example of a hands-on activity. So this is one of our students that her first internship experience was a restaurant host. So for her hands-on activity, what we did, we got her to, she had to serve her parents. She had to have them come in and greet them. She had to bring them their food to them. Things like that. And so it was like a role-playing hands-on activity. So that's her smiling at the camera after she served them their food and their drink. And she got such joy out of that. And then also at the bottom is another hands-on activity where the office assistant student is working on certain things on the computer. So how did we do the job coaching component? So we actually utilized the peer mentors, and the peer mentors checked on them on a weekly basis. So they were able to incorporate their peer mentoring as well as like their job coaching or job skills trainers, we call them, to make sure that they understood the activities, that they're completing them, to assist with any of that. And then starting next semester, or this coming up semester, we utilize another one of our transition specialists who also assists in some of our other employment programs. So she will be a huge role starting next semester with the job coaching as well. So next slide, please. So here on the screen is an example of one of the schedules that that we created for one of our students. So this is kind of the format that we use every week. So it had the list of activities that they had to complete, as well as a list of reminders or submission to assist them with keeping up with what they were supposed to submit back to us, because that being a remote learning internship experience, you know, we had to have proof that they completed it. So they did submit back to us everything that they completed, whether it's through email or pictures. So that's how we documented if they completed everything. So as y'all can see, just began with a list of the activities they had to complete, whether they have a video to watch and included the links, space for their journal entries, and any of their hands-on activities, as well as explained on these weekly schedules. So you can go to the next slide. And that's just the second and third, third and fourth page of the internship schedule for the students. So this was the restaurant host one. So as y'all can see, there's the list of really fun hands-on activities that we got the student to complete. And next slide. And that is all. I know we are taking questions at the end of it, right, Susanna and Robin?
Yes.
Yes, that's for that.
Yes, and if anybody has questions, they can more than happily put them in the chat, and we can go through and answer all those.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Danielle. That was really, really great.
No problem. Thank y'all for having me.
All right, Ben, you're up next.
All right, hello. Yeah, I'm Ben. Thank you so much for having me today. This has been such an exciting year to be job coaching. Like Robin said in my introduction, I've been working with the IDEAL program, that's the IPSC program here at Georgia State for the last few years. And also this year, I started working as a career developer and job coach with community provider Price Support Network. And I think, like Danielle, I had shared with higher education, IDEAL really had to be flexible and had to come up with new ideas to engage with our students and to support them to not only build their skills and like have a successful year, but also have a meaningful year, right? And so we've done that through a few virtual internships. I supported one young woman with her virtual internship at O'Neill Communications, where she worked on marketing materials and things like that. So traditionally, we would have gone into O'Neill's office and completed assignments and worked on projects, but all of that happened virtually. So we had to use Zoom, we had to use Google Call, FaceTime, just kind of whatever made sense that day, that time, for us to be able to communicate and to be able to work together. I'm a big fan of the annotation tool on Zoom. If for those of you that aren't familiar, when you are sharing your screen, you can click up at the top and click on the annotate, and there's like arrows and stickers, and you can draw on the screen. And that I have found makes it a lot easier to work through a project with someone than trying to just like point at the screen and say, oh, this button over here, or the green button. If you can circle it, it just made the time go by so much quicker and made communication so much smoother. Another thing that was exciting for us this year is at IDEAL, we started an apprenticeship program where we have 4 different tracks for our students to be able to build skills that they can use in their careers one day. And so our 4 tracks this year were music, acting, graphic design, and writing. And so each week there were activities and projects, group activities, where the students would come together on Zoom and talk about music that they liked, or work on a monologue, or work on a blog post. And all of that with the intention of building skills and still trying to stay engaged and work together, even if we don't get to be in person. And that we found was really successful this year. And we're excited to continue to build that and grow that over the next few years with our students. Another way that I have been flexible as a job coach and tried to support people to find new opportunities was through gig work. I feel that in 2020, a number of us had to kind of get creative with ways that we worked and made money. I know that I did. And that's true for many of the students that we serve as well. And so one student right now is working as a freelance video editor for a GCDD film project. And so just this week, he got an email with a video and things that he had to edit. And typically we would go into the office and do that in the studio, but now we're doing that over Zoom. And that's been really cool to be able to just get an email with an edit, hop on Zoom, work for a couple hours, crank the edit out and send it away. And so if anything, that has turned out to be more supportive and more meaningful for him, because he's able to be comfortable in his own home, work on his own computer, and be able to get the work done on his own time. Another way that I've tried to engage with the people that I work with this year is also making sure that we find time to do fun things together online. I've been running a game group where we play like a role-playing game on Friday afternoons. And that's just a way for us all to come together and spend time together and have a good time, have some laughs, but also be able to stay engaged. I'm also a really big fan of role-playing games because it puts you in an opportunity to make decisions or have experiences and imagined experiences that you might not have in your everyday life. In our game, we are the crew of an intergalactic spaceship. And so that's pretty out of this world. Also, just this week, I supported someone to start their first day in an in-person job, which has been really exciting, the first in-person job for the last year. And that process of interviewing and onboarding for that job, doing that virtually, that's been really cool, because that's been a way that we can get on Zoom, and we had an interview on Zoom, and we had other reflections and things like that we did together. And then after our workday on Monday, rather than sit down and have a meeting and talk about what did we just do, how was our day, what are our thoughts and feelings, we met on Zoom the next day. And that was a way for us to still stay connected and use our technology to try to minimize in-person contact and try to be mindful of the world around us, but still to be able to be engaged and have meaningful experiences and to reflect on the work that we did together. And so, yeah, like Danielle has said, and like I'm sure Tammy will say, this year has looked really different, but I think that this has been a really exciting year to grow and to have new experiences with the folks that we serve. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. That was incredible. Those great. Some real life examples. Really appreciate that. Next up, we have Tammy.
Good morning, everyone. Happy to be here, and also want to thank Robin and Susanna for organizing and hosting and pulling all this together. It has been a challenging year. We're almost done. Hopefully 2021 brings a whole new set of more positive challenges. I had the benefit of joining inclusive education with UCF in 2018, really specifically to focus on career readiness. Our program, our students take a regular course of classes, both inclusive college classes that they audit, and then we have designed our own curriculum, essentially, that I call pre-job coaching. It is a 4-course, 2 courses the first semester they're there, and then 1 each course after. 3 career readiness courses, a career 1, a career 2, a career 3, and then we do a personal leadership course. For me, it was, let's get the base of corporate culture ingrained in these students. Having substitute taught in ESE courses, there wasn't a lot of structure. There wasn't a lot of accountability. So Career One is all about dress professionally, be on time. They clock in for class, they clock out for a break, they clock back in for the whole semester, just to build those job readiness habits, and they become familiar and realize they can do it. And that's the greatest benefit, is watching them just continue to gain confidence in skills they didn't think they would ever be able to master. And we go all the way through Career Three, which has become a life after college. What are you going to do when you graduate? Career Two is all about interviewing and virtual interviewing now we really focus on. And personal leadership, just owning your decisions and doing exploration into what it is you really want to do. I believe every human being has the right to have a job they love. And I've been blessed to have more than one. So that's super important to me. We are CTP certified. Our credential has 3 separate focuses. So we have a hospitality and tourism focus, obviously being in Central Florida, which was hugely rough this year. We have a social service focus, and we have an education focus. So all of our students do a work experience during their term at UCF that is usually on campus. We do not job coach in the work setting. We pre-job coach. We work with the students and the supervisors in the work locations so that they're getting direction from a supervisor, not from me. And I can help them if there's something that a supervisor is concerned with. Through COVID, and then they go into an actual on-site community internship. We graduated in 2019, 13 students, and had a pre-COVID 87% full-time employment rate after graduation. All of those students in jobs they wanted, not just a job. Everything from a student that was hired at the YMCA to instruct Zumba classes, to a student who is now a paraprofessional in a blended disability ability classroom at a local charter school. So wide range. 2020, however, we really had to work hard at exploring the virtual internship options. I started making phone calls early on, pre-internship time, and I called chambers of commerce. I called the local hotel lodging associations, the local restaurant associations, the insurance brokers of America, every organization I could think of, and let them know I'm looking for virtual interns, or I'm looking for virtual intern placements for our students. And we are seeking professionals who are willing to work one-on-one with them. Overwhelming response. A lot of people had some free time. A lot of people know that UCF gets a lot of press in our area. So they were looking for that, hey, my business name might get out there as, lending. Plus our alumni association was awesome when I reached out to them. Who would you guys recommend? So we were able to put all 5 students who were working on internships for this semester towards graduation, who just graduated last week, through their internships, all virtually. We had one student that did an in-person. Everybody else did virtual. I have one young lady who did a series of video story times. She wants to be a child life specialist. So she did a whole series of stories with Aaron, which are now being played in the waiting rooms and playrooms at different pediatric neurosurgical centers. So she's talking to those kids on a regular basis. Really cool project, but she worked with a child life specialist, and it just took off. So of the 5 that we just graduated, all of them completed their internships, 2 in a local hotel that was still working, and they work concierge, housekeeping, bellhop, maintenance. They rotate through the entire building so that they get the whole overview of what the job is. And both of them are now working back in their home cities as things are opening up finally, near the airport, especially at hotel jobs. It's been a challenge, but the successes have been amazing. Beginning of the year, I would have never thought we would have made it to graduation. I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm gonna do. But it's been great. And it just, with these students, and I'm blessed to work with an amazing team, it's the we're gonna figure this out attitude that just keeps us all going. And being able to have a group of people like this that are interested in virtual internship and what are those opportunities, and job coaching and what are those opportunities. Find colleagues that are doing the same thing you're doing somewhere else. Share that information. It is the most in my long career of everything I've done, the most important tool you ever will have is having someone else to bounce an idea off of or glean an idea from. Steal a great idea and keep it for your own. So that is my 2 cents worth, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Thanks so much. I want to put a plug in because that's one of the reasons we created SEPSEA, was so that people could network with each other, especially in the Southeast, where we all have very similar political climates. We have very similar, structures and things like that. And just want people to have that opportunity. So we have a Facebook group where people can go in and chat. We're getting ready to kind of roll out some committees and special interest groups as well. 2021 hopefully will bring a whole new bunch of things for SEPSEA. So we've got a really great team, and we're all trying to work through the bumps of COVID in 2020. So that's a great segue into kind of the work that we've been doing. So part of what's happened during 2020 is we've all learned new ways to interact via platforms, mostly on Zoom. We're learning new things all the time. And so Ben had mentioned using annotation during Zoom. And some of you might have done this before, but some of you might have no clue how to do it. And so I've asked Ben to take a moment and kind of show and explain what he's doing. So I'm going to share my screen, and I have the flyer up from this very webinar. So Ben, I'm going to turn it over to you for a minute to give us a little tutorial.
All right. So as you all look at the screen here, you see at the top of the screen, there's a green bar where it says you are viewing Susanna Miller Reyes's screen. If you click on view options, it'll drop down and then it'll give you your screen fit options, fit to window, 50%, 100%, etc. Underneath that is the request remote control option, which is another tool that I love to use. And then right below that is annotate. So it looks like somebody is in here already annotating on the screen. I can't tell who that is, but yeah, you can just click. You have a few different options. See, I just drew that circle there. Over here, today it is December 17th, 2020. So I'm underlining that to draw your attention. There's also an arrow, which is nice. Here I can point to Georgia. And so I can say, hey, look, see over there on the map, there's Georgia. That's where I am. I also love the stamps because there's another arrow option. There's a check mark, an X, a heart, a star. And I've used those, to mean different things. And it just kind of like works depending on, there we go. Yeah. Hi, Kelly. I see your star there. Yeah, it's fun to just like play around with it. I also really like the text option because you can click on the screen and it opens up a text box, and then you can start typing, hi everyone. You can change the color of the font, and then when you press enter, it should come up on the screen. when you click away there, if you can all see, hi everyone. And so that's been fun if you're trying to help with spelling or to make like grammar suggestions, things like that. I find that anytime that there can be a visual component, that is always really helpful. Also the eraser, you can go and erase your work. Yeah, but just play around with the annotations. It's really fun to explore. And actually a student that I support like taught me how to do it. One day we were on Zoom and suddenly there was just like all of these drawings appearing on the screen. And I was like, dude, what are you doing? How are you doing that? And he was like, oh, like you just do this and find it. And it's been my favorite thing.
To add to that, one of my colleagues at the center, she's been doing work with some of we have some trainees who've been working on resumes. And so she'll take over the screen, which I had no idea you could do either until all of this, which is one of the options that Ben talked about when you do the drop down. And she'll go in and kind of help tweak some things, because sometimes it's formatting that can be really confusing and hard. I mean, it's hard to do formatting sometimes on your own.
Absolutely.
But having somebody explain it. So if you can just hop in and help with things like that, Zoom has been really good to have those opportunities as well. All right, we have some questions, and if you have questions, please put them in the chat. And Robin's going to be looking at the chat, and I'll be looking at the chat to ask. So I know we have our first question.
Yeah. So Ben, thank you so much. I had no idea that you could do that. That's really
It's
cool.
so fun.
I can't wait to use that next time. Okay, we had a question, and you don't mind answering that. Where can we find virtual gig work for our interns?
Yeah, good question. Good question. I think that, Tammy could also probably speak on this too. But opportunities just come from leveraging connections. Like really just like how Tammy said that she was sending out emails, connecting with as many people, just, hey, are you interested? Hey, do you need an intern? That's really what I do. I mean, even just, I was on Instagram the other day, messaging with one of my friends, and something came up that could have been an opportunity for somebody that I work with. And I was like, oh, I know somebody that can do video editing. Let me know if you need help editing a project, and we'd be happy to, support you in that. And so just kind of like leveraging existing connections, finding new connections. The gig job doing the freelance editing actually came out of a seminar that like I was in with the student. He brought up the fact that he was an editor, and then somebody else that was on the seminar just reached out, and then we capitalized on that. Another young man that I worked with that's a writer, I was looking for opportunities for him to try to get published. And so I just reached out to Creative Loafing and just emailed them until they emailed me back. And so if there is something that you think would be a good fit for somebody that you're working with, or you have an idea, just pursue it doggedly, and something will come of it. Even if they can't help you, maybe they have a connection that can help you and can find a job for this person.
What about, we just had another question, Tammy, I'd love to hear your feedback, as Bennett just said as well. But what about for students who have more significant needs and aren't at a place where they can work so independently? Do you have any examples of work that you've had with them?
So I can answer.
Tammy or Ben?
Yeah, yeah, either one. We had a couple of students early on that did have very significant additional needs. And we were able to start them out really at home with master tasking, whether it be sorting papers in numerical order for a parent who's stuck working at home, or not stuck working at home, has the opportunity to work at home. We also had a student that became a video best friend for an ESE classroom. It's kind of like a pen pal, but they would come in to a second grade classroom and just be their kind of visitor for the day, guest speaker, talk about what high school was going to be like, what middle school was going to be like from their perspective, and the students really, really related to them. And that actually put that student on a path of going into an education focus down the road. So just think outside the box. I mean, seriously, if you think it's crazy, that's probably the one that's going to work.
This is Susanna, and part of what my former job was doing employment skills with individuals with more significant needs. And I just want to echo what Tammy said, is finding those skills to start working on. And someone, it's just being creative and thinking through, what are the skills? How can we build them? And then trying to think through if there are places that, need things to be done, whether it's virtually or even somebody being able to drop something off at someone's house, or we have things where we'll drop something off at the university and then someone from the university will then go take it to a student. It's being creative. And so thinking through what are those skills that a person needs. Let's master the skills and then move on to, okay, what kind of internship or job uses these skills and how can I make a connection to use them?
And Susanna and Robin, can I piggyback off something that Ben said earlier? Ben, I could not agree more. Just, reaching out to people and establishing those connections. I want to share a story real quick about another way, not just like email, it's social media. I mean, I know a lot of people are on social media these days. You would not realize how much social media actually really helped us so we did a virtual internship experience during the summer as well in a completely different program. It wasn't post-secondary related, but it was employment related, and it was one of our yearly employment events. And one of our high school students, her virtual internship was centered around working at Disney as a baker. That was her dream job. And so as one of the components that we do, and we're going to be doing this with post-secondary as well next semester, but setting up job informational interviews because they cannot go in person and things like that. So we would literally reach out to people saying hey, we have this, would you be willing to do an interview? And we really struggled with the Disney one, really struggled with it. And so Jerry, I know a lot of y'all probably know, especially in the SEPSEA area, I know who Dr. Jerry is, but he made a post on Facebook saying we are in need of this. Is there anybody that would be willing to do this job informational interview or know somebody that worked at Disney that would be willing to do this? And so literally from there, it was response after response after response after response. And it was getting to the point of we were reaching out to 3 or 4 people, and then all of them at once agreed to do. And so we were well, what are we going to do? So what we did was we took all 3 or 4 of those responses and we used it as a reward for actually our entire group of students that was doing the program. So at the end of the program, their reward was that they got to participate in an interview with all these Disney employees. I mean, who doesn't love that? Who don't love Disney, especially as a young high school student? So yeah, I cannot agree more with Ben, social media, just establishing those connections, reaching out to people. I heard Ben mention a freelance animator, I believe. We actually established a connection with a freelance animator. He's actually participated in several of our employment events now, doing job informational interviews. And so, but yeah, I cannot agree more.
Susanna, do you mind if I jump in and piggyback off of that? So if you have the opportunity to look within your own post-secondary system, look at the clubs and organizations on campus. We do a billion interviews with our students, practice interviews, and we pull from those clubs that are students with like interests that are going into, that are in a club that maybe represents the field. Speaking of Disney, of course, UCF has the most magical club on earth, which is a huge thing, but we pull those students to do our practice Disney interviews. We pull students from College of Education, different clubs. We pull students from engineering clubs to do those interviews. That has such a dual effect because our students aren't totally freaked out about being interviewed by another student, but I believe that our students one-on-one interacting with our other students, even if it's through Zoom, it breaks down that sense of unknown that students have about students with disabilities. And it's that one student at a time, how we change the world for these guys moving forward. That kid that's working on his master's in business administration 5 years from now may have a person walk in his office, I get choked up, sorry, with a disability. And instead of going, oh, heck no, his brain is going to go, that reminds me of that kid that I interviewed when I was a junior at UCF. Changes the world.
Yeah, thank you for making that point, Tammy, because it's very true. These relationships are mutually transformative. And to kind of piggyback again, college campuses, your college campus, even though things are really different right now, but college campuses employ people doing so many different types of jobs. And so, it's very important to have those community connections, but it's just as important to have those university connections. And so there's someone doing some job at the university that is related typically to something that a person is doing. College campuses are little communities of their own, and they have, all the different departments, even if you're, 1,000-person campus or a 50,000 person campus. 50,000 person campuses are like little cities. And so really kind of think outside the box there. And really those relationships too are, mutually reinforcing and transformative. We have time for more questions if people have more questions. We've got a great group of people, or if anybody else wants to kind of, share an example of something that you've done that you think has been really great during 2020 to, roll with the 2020 punches. Well, I'll ask a question and then we'll see if anybody else has any, give people time to put things in the chat box. So Tammy, Danielle, and Ben, what's your number one piece of advice for individuals when we're thinking about doing things virtually, not in person? Ben, you can go first. And then Tammy, and then Danielle.
Just kind of like doing the mute unmute dance. Yeah, I think I really like what Tammy said earlier about like, it does start at home, especially with, everything being at home right now, that building those skills and also just figuring out what makes sense. I think that sometimes when we're going out into a workplace, we very much try to like fit our schedule like as much as we can to that schedule, or kind of, make them like be a part of that workplace culture. But since a lot of that is happening at home, like on our own timetables, I think that something that has been that I've learned is to support that and just like, an individual knows their needs and knows what works for them. And so in figuring out a schedule and figuring out what makes sense for a student working a virtual internship, I really just try to sit down and make the plan with them and figure out what makes sense. And so if they're a morning person, let's meet in the morning and let's work. If they would prefer to work in the afternoon, let's work in the afternoon. I think that in general, I try to follow the job seeker lead as much as possible. And I've just been trying to do that even more so in this virtual space.
Amy?
I would say, don't underestimate the ability of your students. I have learned more from them regarding the virtual world. But it was really fun at the very beginning of the virtual transition. We decided to institute, I called them flash mobs, the students called them pop-up Zoom socials. So they would just send a message out to everyone that they wanted to. Hey, Zoom social at 3 p.m. today. And some days there'd be 4 people in the Zoom meeting, and sometimes there'd be 30 people in the Zoom meeting. However, that gave them control and kind of built their confidence with their abilities, and it just took off from there. Then they were never hesitant with their virtual intern partner to get into a Zoom meeting and know that they could mute and unmute and how they should look and what their background, and not to change their background 47 times during a meeting. Those little things that they saw other people doing that drove them crazy, they didn't do when they were in their virtual internship. So don't underestimate them.
And it sounds like things don't have to always be so serious. Danielle.
I guess I would say one thing I've realized through this whole time is it has pushed all of us, and that's for everybody here. I mean, 2020 has been a huge push on everybody. I would just say, just don't be scared to push yourself, and like, because I mean, you're with virtual internships, you have to be creative. I mean, it's just so much easier with the in-person experiences and things like that. But with virtual, yes, there's extra work to it on all of us. But what I see, and I keep reminding myself, is that in the end, this is for the students. This is for them to get these professional experiences. Yes, it's remotely, but at least, like, they are getting those experiences, even if it's through watching videos or doing these hands-on activities that we do. So I would say, don't be afraid to push yourself to be creative as you can, because I'll be honest, I don't consider myself the most creative person, but this experience has had to push me to come up with very creative ideas for these students to do, like, hands-on type stuff. And then my other piece of advice, I would say, especially for the way that we do it, don't be scared to establish those relationships with the parents. Even as college students, yes, we want them to be independent. And yes, I know a lot of them, eventually want to move out of the house and get away from their parents. And we want to grow that independence. But through these remote experiences, they are at home. So who's the people that's at home? The parents. And I'm not saying that in a way to baby them or to treat them as little kids, but one thing we've been really working on is making sure the parents are aware of what's going on at the home, what activities they're doing, because they may be able, if the student is struggling, the parent may be able to assess. And so we've been trying to really strengthen those relationships with the parents as well. So
That's great. Very, very helpful. Thank you all three. We have one other question, which is very, very intuitive. It says, I've noticed some students getting really comfortable with the isolation this pandemic has made necessary. And I feel that their motivation to reach out, try new things, and take initiative is suffering. Does anyone have tips on keeping students engaged and ready to take social risks virtually? I'll open that up to all three of you panelists, if any of you guys have any.
I can talk on that.
Thanks.
So I won't talk too much, but if anybody is interested, the first webinar that SEPSEA did, I actually did. And one really useful tool that we use is through a platform called Discord. And I know a lot of them are like, what, especially if you weren't on that webinar, maybe like, what's Discord? So Discord is a platform that was actually traditionally used for video gamers and things like that. But after COVID, Discord completely changed to make it more of a social experiment for anybody. And so one thing our post-secondary students do is socialize through this Discord platform. So we have like different text channels. We even do events on Discord. We do different chats. We do a thing called trivia. If you were on the webinar, if anybody on here was on the webinar, we actually did a live demonstration of how we do a trivia event. Susanna was such a vital part of that. Thank you, Susanna. Made it such a great experience. But if anybody wants to know more about Discord and how we use it, again, I believe that webinar has been posted on the SEPSEA Facebook page and on the website. So feel free to go and watch that webinar, because that whole hour talks about different social activities on what we do on Discord, Zoom. So yeah.
Thanks, Danielle. Tammy, I know you said you could answer some of that too.
Yeah, one thing we did, the one thing our students are really good at is the use of their cell phones. They all can take pictures, they can all do videos, selfie videos. So I started giving them assignments on a regular basis that were video submissions, which allowed them to get used to seeing themselves speak and interact virtually. They would send them in and then we would all watch them together. And like we did an infomercial assignment where they had to be convincing, come up with a product, do a 30-second commercial that makes me want to buy your product. And they got goofy and they were really, really well done, but it got them more and more and more comfortable in the virtual setting and let them realize that they didn't have to, sit and stare at the light on the laptop. They could actually comment on the stockings in the background of someone's background. Yeah. So everybody always notices my Elmo back there. So it kind of it frees them up, and it's like, it's not that different than my phone just because it looks totally different on Zoom. It's just me and they're just seeing me, and let me just be me. That was huge, and multiple videos really broke those walls down.
Yeah, just to echo that, I think that anytime that a student reached out to me that wasn't just about work, but was maybe to share a meme or to talk about like a video game or like a cartoon character, whatever it was, I really tried to encourage that by responding and by like having a conversation. And so even if I typically wouldn't respond to a text after 8:30 at night, if I'm sitting at home watching TV and somebody's texting me about a video game, like, yeah, I'll respond. And I think that that's part of you have to determine what makes sense for you and your own boundaries, but also finding a way to encourage that that reaching out, and not to discourage that from doing that in the future. That's just my 2 cents on that.
Well, thanks everyone. We are really, thankful that you all joined us today, and we really do want to thank Tammy, Ben, and Danielle for their expertise in this arena. We hope to have this up on YouTube by the end of the year. It'll probably go out the first of the year, just with all the things going on right now. But we will send out a recording of this, and we'll send it out to the SEPSEA listserv and to all those of you who have signed up for this webinar. We will be having more webinars in 2021, so keep a lookout. We are still trying to get our membership management platform up to par, so be looking for that kind of information coming out about SEPSEA in January as well. we are continuing to work towards making post-secondary education in the Southeast and beyond the best it can be. So thank you all for being here today, and be sure to follow us on Facebook. You can also find us on Twitter. We're not as active on Twitter, but more information can be found on our website as well. And we do have board positions opening very soon, so we'll be sending out emails about that. So thanks, everyone. Have a happy holiday. Enjoy your breaks, and we'll see you in the new year. Bye.